Hello and welcome to Rowan and the Wasteland, where we discuss a film and honor its place amongst its peers. I am the titular Rowan, and joining me, as always, is the Wasteland reviewer himself. He is my favorite hard-boiled cop, Mr. Shane Conto. Shane,
I have
we are
never
going.
once been a cop. I might have been a cop, but I think we're
Yeah,
talking about the wrong cop movie. Or maybe we'll
absolutely.
talk about that cop movie.
Who knows? Who knows? So today, Shane, this was your pick,
Yes.
hard boiled by John Woo. What was? I mean, of course I know why, but the listeners out there have no idea why you chose this movie, and I'm sure they're very curious.
So I decided that I'm going to use this as an excuse to get movies off my watch list because I feel like any cinephile needs an excuse for that because then it just becomes endless.
Mhm.
But Hard Boiled had been on my watch list for so long because it's not streaming anywhere. And then, little did I know, it was just chilling on YouTube for free. And I'm just like, what? This whole time, just hanging out there. So
Yeah.
luckily, we got to check it out on YouTube. And one of the reasons why I did want to check this out, like, the only two John Woo films I've seen are Mission Impossible 2 and Face Off. And
Mhm.
I'm like, I feel like that's doing John Woo disservice by not actually seeing his Hong Kong film. So
Right.
I was so excited to finally check out Hard Boiled. But how
Yeah.
about you, Rowan?
So I am currently taking a lecture course about action, the action genre in general. And a couple weeks ago, for our screening, we watched a John Woo movie called The Killer, which might come up later. And that inspired me because we saw a clip from Hard Boiled in class. And so when Shane mentioned that Hard Boiled was going to be his pick, I was thrilled because I really, really wanted to see that movie. And as I mentioned on the thing that we just recorded before this, the perfect way to get me to watch something is to do a podcast about it and or be on a YouTube show about it. So yes, I am really really glad that I finally got a chance to see this because I have not seen nearly as many foreign films, definitely not as many foreign action films as I would like. So this was
Mhm.
definitely the perfect addition to my to the movies that I've watched. And yeah, so I guess well, yeah. So what we're gonna do is, as we do every week, talk about the film, and then later on we are going to discuss the film in relation to other films of in three categories, both the action movies, so the action genre in general,
Mhm.
cop movies, and then movies released in 1992. And so we will discuss where, if Hard Boiled ranks on any of those lists, and we will count down our top five in either category. But before we do that, let's talk about Hard Boiled. Shane, tell me about your thoughts.
So I think the first thing you obviously have to talk about is the action.
Yeah.
And these scenes are visceral, intense, boisterous, and so well choreographed with all of the craziness, the shootouts going on. And my God, they set the tone at the beginning of this film with that shootout in that restaurant at the beginning and like flour flying everywhere and just running across things and all the craziness going on. And Chow Yun Fat, who I know originally from Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, which I think the funny thing is like that's the first time I ever saw him.
I didn't even put it together that he was in that movie. That's awesome.
Yes, and that was the first time I seen him, and then I've seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon,
Mhm.
but I've never seen any of his work with like John Woo, and this made me really happy to actually see him in this, and he is indeed he is the titular hard boiled cop, and he plays that role so well, and you have Tony Leung as well, who just made his big debut in Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings. And the two of them in this film are just so great together. I love the music, that sax, that
Mhm.
sax playing just lays it all down for you. And I have to read. So, one, I loved when he actually called him the hard boiled cop. At the end of the movie, I'm just like, oh, there it is. And one of my favorite quotes in this movie is, "You're full of shit. There's the John." Because only a hard boiled cop would say that to somebody. So those are just a few of my initial thoughts.
Yeah. I echo everything. This movie's awesome. John Woo really, really knows how to shoot action. He knows how to build tension. In all of the action sequences, there are it rarely ever stops moving, and when it does, there is so much masterful tension that I am like if I was in a theater, I would be on the edge of my seat throughout all
Mhm.
of these sequences. It is just so incredibly done. The acting, all of the performances are nothing short of incredible. And I really, really love that they got to absolutely destroy almost every single location that they had in this movie. I like it's every filmmaker's dream to be able to just like obliterate everything. I'm sure John Woo is a very happy man on almost every single day of shooting this movie.
Oh, that hospital. Like the whole entire like third act of this movie is in
Mhm.
this hospital, and the insanity that goes on in that hospital sequence, like between the babies and trying to get the babies out of there, which like this movie feels hard and like intense. And then you have like babies, like them trying to get these babies out of this hospital. And even I saw one of the posters for the movie. It's Chow Yun Fat with a gun holding a baby. I'm like, what?
It's not indicative of the whole movie, but
No.
it does like he does hold a baby for about 3 minutes near
Yes.
the end.
Oh my god. And some of the sequences that go on with this, like just jumping out of hospital windows and just the shootouts. And one thing that I appreciated about this was the range of morality between characters, because like there's a range of like where people lie on like an alignment chart here, which makes it interesting because there's a lot of moving pieces too in the film. And
Mhm.
it isn't something as simple as like, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. There's people in the middle. There's a lot of tension on both sides. They spend a lot of time with like the antagonists and stuff like that as well, and really setting up. And I think the most complex character to me, at least, is Long's character, and what side is he on? What's really going on there? There's a lot of mystery to people's motivations in this film, and like between all the ranges of like the character motivations and just the action set pieces in this are insane. Um, also, there are a few really silly moments, like a baby peeing out fire on Chow Yun Fat's leg. I'm just like, did that really just happen in this movie? I'm
They
just
figure
like,
if they throw everything at you, you won't mind just a little bit of like potentially real life absurdity, which is just oh my god. The hospital action scene is just full of really, really incredibly done, very like really small moments, like when Chow Yun Fat, who is playing a character named Tequila, comes into the one of the main rooms, and the bad guys are holding a lot of the patients there in like one group. It's completely silent, and then the guy behind Chow Yun Fat nods. And then a few of the people in the middle of the group nod, reminding me of Return of the Jedi, pre Sarlacc pit fight, by the way.
yeah.
But then and just that moment is just because that's one of those few moments that the action stops,
Mhm.
but it's still your mind is constantly moving and asking you what's going to happen. Are they the good guys? Are they the bad guys? Why are they nodding? And then like everything after that happens in like a split second, but leading up to that, it's just such a masterclass in just building just I know I've said the word tension a lot, but it's the best descriptor to describe these scenes. The hospital, like the whole third act, I admit that there are gaps in my filmography in terms of action movies, but I think that's one of my favorite action sequences that I've ever seen. In a movie, just the whole hospital sequence, because they move all around the hospital. There and I guess, yeah, guns are not the most interesting weapon of all. There's a reason that horror movies tend to avoid them because the movies would be over like that. Um,
Yep.
but I do think that it's just the things that John Woo does with, making shootouts visually interesting, as opposed to, he could have shot it just, one guy shooting around a corner, another guy trying to shoot him from around the other side of the corner. But no, it is very kinetic. Everyone's moving.
Yep.
Everyone is trying to get somewhere. And at the same time, they're trying to lower the babies out the window. At the same time, there was someone shooting at the people trying to lower the babies out the window. There's so much going on all at once, but it all makes sense, and you have a very clear picture of who is where and who is trying to do what.
And I think that's so important in terms of action because it reminds me of a Cinefix video that I watched on action and breaking down how George Miller shoots action. Because George Miller in all the Mad Max films, there's a lot going on, but there's always an anchor to your attention. Because the thing is, it's like, and they used, um, I think it was like Transformers movies as like the opposite of like, there's just these giant cityscapes and there's 50 million things going on and expecting you to follow 50 million things. No, you need one thing through all the madness to flow through. And John Woo knows how to keep. I appreciate using the word kinetic because there is just this constant energy propelling you forward. And when it does slow down, there's that tension building up until the next thing launches the action again and you're still focused on something. You
Mm-hmm.
have an anchor into the scene because if you don't, it becomes messy and it becomes so hard to follow. But this, you feel like you could follow everything, you have focus, but there's so much great stuff going on. The shipping yard with like the cars and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's just some great set pieces in this film, and there's some like, especially in that shipping yard sequence of the film, there's some like dark stuff going on, and it's just like just like little twists and turns and betrayal and all kinds of things, because that's the thing, the story keeps you on edge too because you never 100% know exactly what's going on, but you always know that you're in Chow Yun Fat's corner
Mm-hmm.
because like even though he's hard boiled, he's still like a good cop. We trust him as an audience and want to follow him along in the story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And another thing that I really quite liked about this movie, that I know a lot of John Woo's Hong Kong films are known for, is that they're very accessible to foreign audiences. I have seen some foreign films that are definitely not as accessible to a Western audience who might not, be familiar with the style or anything. And yes, John Woo does have a very distinctive style, especially in terms of action. But it does jive pretty well with like American action films and what Americans or what European audiences look for in action movies. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more when we specifically talk about action movies later on. Um,
Mhm.
but here, there is hell, a lot of characters in this movie lapse into English at some points, and it just sort of comes and goes, which I thought was very interesting. And like, of course, they never give a reason for it, and I wonder if that's just something that happens. Having never been to Hong Kong, I would not know. But I just think it's very interesting that, of course, that had to be a choice. It's not something that just kind of happens. It was
Yeah.
either written into the script or they came up with it on the day. Either way, I'm sure John Woo had a say in it. But I just think that it's very interesting. And his other film, The Killer, which I will mention later, does this as well. And I just think it's very interesting that he eventually came over and started making a lot more American Hollywood films after making so I feel like these movies are sort of the transitionary period of his career, in which he is making movies in his where he's making movies in Hong Kong, but they can be enjoyed around the world, and then he fully goes to America and starts making American films that you could argue that are enjoyed all around the world as well. So yeah.
I want his face.
I still haven't seen Face Off. I am ashamed to say, Face Off is one of the
It's
big ones.
it's way too long. It's
Is
like
it?
2 hours and 20 minutes. That movie
Oh,
did not
jeez.
need to be 2 hours and 20 minutes. That, like, I enjoy Face Off a lot. I don't really enjoy Mission Impossible 2 that much. But I leave that more on like the script, because like obviously the action and the style is all there. I think
Mhm.
those two movies are, well, one's underwritten, one's bloated. But like watching like his one of his proper like Hong Kong action movies now, oh, I could see why he became such a big thing, and American studios wanted him directing action movies, because like he shows that he can kill it and do it
Literally,
so well.
yeah.
And there's just a style to everything. There's like the slow motion, the like jumping and sliding and like shooting guns everywhere and all kinds of stuff like that. There's just a very specific signature to what a John Woo film looks like. I was just waiting for doves,
Right.
because
Yeah. um,
running joke.
Yeah. My heart was pounding a lot during this movie, and I watched it when I woke up this morning. I woke up, had my bagel, and just jumped right into Hard Boiled. And let me just say, what a way to wake up! It was it wasn't like a splash of cold water, but it was pretty close. It was very intense, very early. But regardless, yeah. You can tell that whenever there is a lull, whenever there are scenes that are building character, they're also building to the next action sequence. And whenever they mention a location, eventually your mind starts to go to, oh, of course there's going to be another shootout here, or there's going to be an action sequence here. And most of the time it does prove to be true, which just goes
Mhm.
to show, I'm not saying it's predictable. And if it is predictable in a fun way, because you are looking forward to what is going to happen. But I am saying that it does play with expectation pretty well. Um, because it shows that even when you know what's coming, it can still be like it can still pay off everything very well and can still be very enjoyable. I mean, as I said, the action sequence in the hospital at the end that took up a full, like, what was it, like 45 minutes. I was
Yeah.
glued to the screen the entire time. I could not take my eyes away.
Yeah, and it lasted a long time, but it kept reinventing itself too, in
Mhm.
terms of exactly what was going to be going on in that action sequence. And that's what made it so exciting. And it had its moments of levity, which I was not expecting, because like especially at the beginning of the film, it's very emotional. Like Chow Yun Fat's character has a reason why he's feeling this way. It's like he loses somebody in that opening sequence, and being able to be there with him all the way up until the end when he like completes that journey is so satisfying. And like it's hard to think about, because so many things in this movie feel like cliche now, but like this probably helped start a lot of those cliches. Like, they have that moment at the end of the movie. It's like bad guy holding gun to good guy and being like, "You can shoot me," and just like, well, I haven't seen this before.
Right. Well,
But if
it's it's funny you should mention that. That scene was what made me like the villain. I was not really in love with the main villain. I think his name was Johnny Wong. Wikipedia tells me.
Mhm.
Didn't really like the character through most of the movie. I just thought like all of the other characters were much more interesting, and he wasn't particularly intimidating. But then at the end, when he's sort of taunting them and telling Chow Yun Fat to slap himself, I was like, okay, this guy is not messing around. I actually, he has a great screen presence. I like watching him. When before I
yeah,
didn't really think that.
this movie, it's like I'm a self-professed action movie snob. Like, I have such strong feelings about action movies because, like, they were the genre for me growing up. Like, I watched so many action movies, and watching this movie made me realize that this set the tone for so many action movies that come after this, and
Mhm,
it feels so fresh and engaging and thrilling in this movie. And I think that says a lot about what John Woo was able to do with this film, because if you can accomplish that and make a film that, it's about cops, it's about like double crosses, it's about who's working for who, and still making it feel fresh and engaging and surprising and fun, I think goes a long way to showing how well John Woo made this movie.
mhm. Absolutely. It is incredible, and that's my last thing that I have to say. Influential, incredible, and if you haven't seen this, you will be, I think, surprised at how much of an influence it had. Circling back to on Western films, it is probably, Kurosawa and John Woo, I think, are some of the most influential foreign directors on American action films, especially, I think. And so this
Mhm.
is definitely one of the big ones that I would recommend watching if you're just a little bit more curious about that.
Yeah, because I'm looking at his IMDb right now, and like he still making some movies and still doing some action movies. I'm trying to see like his last American film looked like it was last big one was Paycheck with Ben Affleck
Mhm.
and Aaron Eckhart. I haven't seen that one, but like he did Wind Talkers. He did Wind Talkers with Nick Cage. That war film? Interesting. Like Mission Impossible 2 and Face Off. Broken Arrow with John Travolta and Christian Slater. Oh, that's such a 90s thing, isn't it?
Right.
Just looking at
Yeah.
some of these movies. Oh my god, Hard Target with Jean Claude Van Damme was I think his first big American film in 1993. That Van Damme mullet's something else. But like, I want
Oh
to
yeah.
check out some of his other films. I definitely want to check out The Killer. I did add that to my watch list.
Yes. Maybe we can choose it as an episode down the line. Who knows? Who knows?
There you go. We'll
Yeah.
be back for more woo.
Absolutely. I would not mind it. I watched it recently for class, and I would absolutely not mind watching it again. Um,
Definitely wooed me.
ah.
Aha! There we
I
go.
think that is the perfect segue into
Yes.
our lists for this episode. We will start with action movies, our top five action movies of all time. I feel like this is probably the most general category we have on the episode today.
Yep.
I feel like action, you can really define it any which way. Like I personally would not call a movie like Star Wars action. That falls into more other genres that I would
Yeah.
associate it more with. So all of the ones on my list are pretty hard on action. It might be different kinds of action, but it is still pretty. All of them are very action heavy.
Yep.
But Shane, you want to start your top five action movies?
My number 5, T2 Judgment Day.
Oh, I think we're gonna have a lot of crossover.
Yeah. Two of mine are like 80s, 90s action movies, and surprisingly for me, this shocked me a lot. Three of them are pretty like recent action movies,
Nice.
because we are in a renaissance of action
Yeah.
genre. There's still a lot of crap out there, but like some
Yeah.
people out there are making some great action movies. Number
Mhm.
4, Mission Impossible Fallout. How does this franchise just keep getting better? And I'm really hoping to see if number 7 keeps that continuing. But oh god, the just that trailer with Friction from
Yeah.
Imagine Dragons
Yeah.
and Henry Cavill cocking his fist. I'm like, oh my god, this man's a monster. Number 3, and this is a tough choice which one I wanted to pick, and this might not be the one that most people will pick, but I love John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum.
Right.
Oh, just even like that sequence of watching Halle Berry's dogs just mess up a bunch of dudes, and like the whole entire Continental shootout at the end, and him fighting the two, having that like sword fight and martial arts fight with those two martial artists at later in the film. Like John Wick has just redefined what like classic action movie is for a new era. Number two is Die Hard. Like, come on, it's Die Hard. It's John McClane. It's Hans Gruber. And number one, this was an easy one for me because this is my literally. If I can count Lord of the Rings as one movie, this is my number two movie. Then is Mad Max Fury Road, because I cannot remember a more exhilarating experience I've had in a theater than that 2 hours of just non-stop
Mhm.
action.
I wish I had been able to see Mad Max in theaters. That was before I was allowed to see R-rated movies in the theater. But yeah, I've seen
That
Mad
wasn't
Max
so
many, many
bad.
times. Yeah, right. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, right? Um, I mean, I completely understand my parents not wanting me to see Deadpool, but Mad Max was, I feel like I could have handled that, but whatever. It's going to pop up on my list too, but regardless. So my list is number 5 is Kill Bill Volume 1. I
Nice.
think, speaking of, Asian cinema, Tarantino borrows a lot from there, especially from not necessarily John Woo, more, I don't know if you've seen Lady Snowblood, Shane. Um,
I have not.
it's if you watch it, you will absolutely see the Kill Bill influence. It's about a woman going after the gang that killed her family, and she's picking them
Are
off one
you
by one.
saying that Quentin Tarantino watched movies?
I am, in fact, saying that he watched a lot of movies. Um, and yeah, so Lady Snowblood is not on the list, though, although it is definitely an honorable mention. Kill Bill Volume 1 is here. And number 4 is Die Hard for all the reasons you mentioned. Number 3 is T2 Judgment Day for all the reasons you mentioned. My number 2 is Mad Max Fury Road, which every time I've seen it, it just flies by. And that's really because it's just all one big action sequence. I do want to cover it on the podcast someday because I feel like we could both have a lot to say about this.
You son of a bitch, I'm in.
But yeah, my God, this movie. I mean, Hard Boiled does have its moments of downtime. Mad Max Fury Road does not stop, which is just another reason why it is absolutely incredible. My number 1 is a movie that makes fun of action movies a lot, but it is itself an action movie, and this is Hot Fuzz, one of my favorite movies ever
Yes.
made. I will. So I'm actually writing one of my final paper for the action class on Hot Fuzz. I am due for a
Nice.
rewatch soon. I love this movie so much, and it is perhaps one of the funniest movies that I've ever seen, aside from the Velocipaster. And it just every single line in Act One has a payoff in Acts Two and Three. The action is not only hilarious, but it's also very well choreographed and very well thought out. And just very clever as well. So yes, Hot Fuzz takes the number 1 spot for my top 5 action movies.
Oh, that was a close, so close to getting in my top five.
Yeah.
Oh, and I take off for my birthday every year, and I just watch movies all day,
Mhm.
and that made this year's list. Back in November,
Nice.
I did rewatch Hot Fuzz on my birthday,
Nice,
because like,
nice, nice.
and one of the little things I love about it is the little cameos, like all the townsfolk, like the
Mhm.
priest is Belloc from Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and also Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers movie. And the leader of the neighborhood watch is from The Wicker Man.
Mhm.
He's the detective and everything. It's like it, and just Simon Pegg is so amazing. The whole entire cast is amazing. Skinner and that shit eating grin that Timothy Dalton has. Oh my god, and that mustache.
Yeah. I just cannot get over how insanely clever this movie is. And like we know Edgar Wright is a great filmmaker, but Hot Fuzz is just on another level.
Mhm.
And I like also I don't know if you knew this, but I know this movie backwards and forwards. Edgar Wright's parents make cameos as well. They're the people that come to test the town for the Village of the Year awards while they're in the process of destroying the town. Um, I okay, we are absolutely covering this at some point, not next week, but definitely at some point soon.
Uh,
Um, yeah,
oh my god, and like Peter Jackson is the drunken Santa that stabs him
yeah,
through the hand, and Kate Blanchett's his significant other that breaks
yep,
up with him.
yep,
Never see her face, but you can
yeah,
tell it's her. That
yeah.
whole interaction, and the fact that it's Martin Freeman, Steve Coogan, and Bill Nighy are like the three that come in to like tell him is like you're getting sent out
Hello, Nicholas. How's the hand? Yeah.
of
I we might have to do. I know we didn't do a quote off for the Velocipaster, but I absolutely would not mind doing a quote off for Hot Fuzz. It is just far too good. But
I'm the slasher of
of
prices.
prices.
Oh my
Oh
god.
wow.
Yarb.
Anyway,
We'll save
if
the
we're
rest of them for
talking,
when we actually do that on the
absolutely,
show.
yeah. I could name 1,000 honorable mentions for this category, so I
Yeah,
will only mention
100%.
one. I will only mention one, and that is a movie that I've mentioned a couple times in this episode so far, and that's The Killer, John Woo's other, well,
Nice.
not other action film with Chow Yun Fat. He was in several, but this is the only other one that I've seen.
Mhm.
And if you watch this and then Point Break, you will see how much Catherine Bigelow is influenced by this movie. It is. I actually like it a little better than Hard Boiled. It's not. I don't think it's a better movie, but it has two very defined main characters. Chow Yun Fat plays an assassin, and an actor whose name I do not remember and do not want to butcher plays the police officer who is after him. And they form not just a bond, but also maybe a friendship near the end. Yeah, so The Killer is also an incredible movie that, again, very influential in the annals of film history. So.
Yeah, I could throw out Aliens, True Lies. I promise it's not just James Cameron movies. Uh, endless amount of like I could have picked some Arnold movies in there. Like Big Trouble in Little China, um, Escape from New York, some good John Carpenter films, some Stallone stuff. This was tough, and I was surprised how many films from like the past like 10 years I actually picked for this because like we're having a great renaissance of action movies and uh Chad Stahelski and David Leitch. I'm really looking forward to Bullet Train at this
Oh
point.
yeah.
Yep. And they're doing some great work with action movies. David Leitch is doing a Highlander remake. I'm like, which that is the most 80s cheese movie in the history of 80s cheese movies.
Yeah.
And oh, Highlander. But anyway, I could do tons of them too. So I'll
Mhm.
just stop now.
Absolutely. Yeah, so now moving on to cop movies. I believe it's my turn to go first.
Yep.
There's going to be some crossover here, or rather, there's going to be one crossover here, and I think you
Okay.
will know what it is for my action movies and cop movies. But my number five is Fargo, the Coen brothers, which I recently watched for
Mm-mm.
the first time a couple months ago, and I really really adore it, from the accents, from everyone's accents to the iconic wood chipper death is just so fantastic. Great filmmaking there. Number four, I'm sort of stretching it a little bit and talking about Silence of the Lambs. um,
I almost put that, and
yeah,
honestly, I don't think it's a stretch. So,
yeah,
because
yeah,
well, I guess if they're not just cops, but like
right,
agents, I think
right,
that works.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. This is also one that I recently watched for the first time. I'm actually looking at a picture of Hannibal Lecter on the wall there for whatever reason. But
Good morning.
yeah. So Silence of the Lambs is my number four. My number three is my comfort movie, 21 Jump Street. I love this movie. I will put it on whenever I
Yes.
need a laugh and whenever I need any sort of happy feeling. My number two is The Departed. Another one that I watched for the first time. I've just been really hitting all these great cop movies. I watched it, immediately went to 5 stars, immediately shot to the top of several lists. Yeah, this movie's amazing. And my number one, for reasons that I've mentioned, is Hot Fuzz. Makes fun of the action genre and the police subgenre of films as well. Has just some great supporting cast members in the police force. Sorry, police. I don't remember. Uh, f- uh, Simon Pegg says we're not supposed to use the word force. Force is to force implies. I don't remember, but anyway, I will.
Yeah.
I will get the quote right when we do the episode. Um, but yeah, so those are my top five cop movies.
Awesome. I have one crossover and two that almost made me change my list.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm refraining from changing my list just so that we can have some variety, but I'm like, darn it, I should have put. Actually, there's three of them. I'm like, Silence of the Lambs totally could be in this. Fargo totally could be in this. Hot Fuzz totally could be in this. So my number five's Dirty Harry. Oh, just Clint Eastwood, and it's just like, and all this excitement. Did I fire 6 shots or did I only fire five? Well, do you feel lucky, punk? Oh my god! And that's just like quintessential like 70s cop movie. Late 60s, early 70s. And like obviously the sequels got more and more absurd over time. But like he's just so endlessly quotable. And it's like I have to quote the Deadpool, which is the last Dirty Harry movie. It's like, I just read your fortune. You're shit out of luck. Just like the one liners. Oh my god. Seven is my number four, which that is such a disturbing movie. But it's such a great detective story with Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, and you know who we weren't supposed to know who plays John Doe, and maybe we shouldn't talk about who plays John Doe.
I haven't seen it yet, and I do not know who plays John Doe. I've managed to avoid spoilers for this movie, so
Then I
uh,
won't say anymore.
excellent.
My number three is The Departed.
Mhm.
My number two, almost my number one, had to be Lethal Weapon. I am such a huge Lethal Weapon fan. I am such a huge Shane Black fan. Mel Gibson and Danny Glover. I'll watch all four of these. And I will be watching the fifth one when it comes out, which I hope they put the subtitles. We are both way too old for this shit. Because I don't know why they're making a fifth one. I can't believe Richard Donner was going to be making it before he passed away.
Right.
And then number one's L.A. Confidential, which I love this film so much. Between the trio of Russell Crowe, Guy Pearce, and Kevin Spacey, the whole rest of the supporting cast, Kim Basinger, James Cromwell, Danny DeVito, David Strathairn, just like the whole entire cast is amazing. The mystery is legitimately intriguing and shocking, and just the period setting is so fantastic. It's one of my favorite films of all time. So I that had to be number one for me.
Mhm. Very nice, very nice. Yeah, a lot of the ones on your list I have yet to see. They're all on my list of shame. So who knows? We might see some of them pop up on this episode because on this podcast. Because as we know, the best way to get me to watch something is to cover it
Yep.
on a podcast.
Give an
Um,
excuse.
exactly, exactly. Before we get into our favorites of 1992, Shane, I have a little query for you that I purposely didn't tell you about beforehand. Can you name any of the top 10 at the worldwide box office in 1992 without looking it up?
Worldwide box office.
Yes. I
Ooh.
will hint that it's not too much change from the domestic box office, But since we were talking about Hard Boiled, I figure it was only right we would talk about worldwide. But spoiler alert: Hard Boiled does not show up on this list, unfortunately.
I'm looking at my top five. I'm trying to think if any of them would have made that much money.
I
This is a
guarantee you,
weird choice.
at least one does. At least one pops up on this list. I don't know your list, but I just have a little feeling.
So like, oh, that's tough because now
Yeah,
I'm
right.
actually trying to think of what the big movies of 1992 were.
Mhm.
Because was Scent of a Woman one of them?
Scent of a Woman is not on the top 10. Let's see where Scent of a Woman. Scent of a Woman is number 19.
Okay,
Yeah.
so not outside the realm. Was My
No.
Cousin Vinny one of them?
My Cousin Vinny is number 29.
My next guess is going to be number 39, apparently. So just keep going like that. I don't want to guess anymore because I don't want to give any more away of my top 10. But oh, what's number one?
Aladdin is number one. Made
Shit.
$346 million.
Duh, that makes so much sense because I was trying to remember what animated movies were there. I didn't put any of them in my top five, but I know there was
Mhm.
what that makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
People probably went like 50 million times to go see Aladdin in theaters.
Yeah. Number two is Home Alone 2, Lost in New York. Number three is Batman Returns. Number four is Lethal Weapon 3. Number five is A Few Good Men. Number six is Sister Act. Number seven is The Bodyguard. Number eight is Wayne's World. Number nine is Basic Instinct. And number 10 is A League of Their Own. So many films that I have not seen that I feel
One
ashamed
of them
to admit that I have
on
not
my
seen.
list did make the top 10. So it's not Lethal Weapon 3.
I I figured. I also had a feeling about that. But yeah, Shane, what are your top five of 1992?
Number 5, Last of the Mohicans. I'm a huge Michael Mann fan, Daniel Day Lewis, and the score in this movie is amazing. And especially the climax of this film is one of the most breathtaking. Like, who would ever think they would see Daniel Day Lewis running up a mountain dual wielding muskets? Like, just think about that sentence right there. That's something special. Number 4, A League of Their Own, which I'm such a huge baseball fan. I've watched that movie so many times, and Gina Davis is so great. And Tom Hanks. Are you crying? There's no crying in baseball. So great. My number 3, which was the only one that I actually guessed, was My Cousin Vinny.
Mhm.
Where are all you Italian people out there? How didn't you get that to number in the top 10? Which that is one of the most Italian American movies I could think of, and I just love every second of it. And the culture shock between the whole, it's like the two Utes. It's just like the two what youths, just such a and like Marissa Tomei. I know a lot of people are mad that she won the Oscar, but my
Oh,
God,
come
she kills
on.
it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She totally
She
deserves it.
kills it.
Yeah.
So obviously, it couldn't have been a Buick Skylark. And just like that whole entire scene is just amazing. And let's be real here, Joe Pesci's definitely playing above his belt. It's like Joe Pesci is just like, you're with Marissa Tomei. you should be you should be like worshiping her at her feet, you jerk, and he treats her like crap the whole entire thing.
Yeah.
Oh my god. The biological clock is ticking. Oh my god. Number 2 is Reservoir Dogs. Cause like Tarantino, man. And that is such a great film. And this one, my number 1 was really easy because it is one of my top 10 films. One of my, I think, top 20 films of all time, and it's Unforgiven.
Mhm.
And um, 2 Clint Eastwood movies I talked about today. Um, Unforgiven is one of the most impressive subversions of a genre ever put to film because this strips down and demolishes the mythos of what like John Wayne westerns were and what we expected out of that, but still got to eat your cake too, because you still have William Money just showing up like a spirit of vengeance at the end of that film. And that ending reminded me of some like High Plains Drifter and Pale Rider, where like William Money's obviously not supernatural, but he came in like an unstoppable force and just laid waste to that bar. Oh my god, such a amazing western. And it's Clint Eastwood's last one, if you
Mhm.
don't count Crime Macho, which is basically a
Yeah.
western, but it's a neo western. we'll
Right.
we'll forget about that right now.
Yeah. um, yeah, so our lists are pretty different. In terms of Unforgiven, I tried to watch that this week, did not end up working out. We technically watched it in my Latin class last year, in the same Latin class as that we watched Velocipaster in. But I it was the we were watching it some of the days that I was virtual, so I didn't really pay attention, so I can't in good conscience say that I watched it. So I do want to go back because I know it's incredible. I know it won Best Picture, and so I definitely will give it its due diligence at
Yep.
some point soon. But yeah, so just know it's probably like when I watch it, and like who knows, eventually we're going to start repeating years, and it'll be very interesting to see what we've seen since we last did that year.
Yeah.
But for now, my top five of 1992. Number five is Aladdin, classic, absolute classic.
Yep.
I am in the minority in that I quite like the remake, but the original is still better, as with most things.
I
Number
enjoyed
four,
it.
yeah, yeah. Number four is Army of Darkness, the third film in the Evil Dead trilogy.
That came so close. That was
Yeah.
such a hard choice.
Love this movie. Brings the Evil Dead to medieval times. This is my boomstick. Classic.
You
um,
thought me beautiful once. Well, honey, you got real ugly.
yeah. Number three is Reservoir Dogs, Tarantino's feature debut. Excellent film. Number two is My Cousin Vinny, for all the reasons Shane mentioned. And my number one is Hard Boiled. Yes, it did make it on my list. And yes,
There
it
you
did end up
go.
being my favorite of the year. I mean, of course, we spent the whole episode on it, but I am quite proud of the fact that, and for 2000 as well, a Chow Yun Fat movie is at the very top of my rankings for the year. His Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon also made it to the top of my 2000 ranked. Granted, there are
Nice.
not many films on that list, but Crouching Tiger is pretty darn good. So we'll have to see
It's a
if
great
anything
choice.
tops it. It was really between that and Gladiator. It was honestly a toss up, but I ended up going with Crouching Tiger. Yeah. Um, yeah. So that was our episode on Hard Boiled. Next week, I have made a decision. Next week, I promise all of you listeners out there, I promise that I have seen movies and want to watch movies that came out before I was born. However, we will be talking next week about the HBO original film, Frequently Asked Questions About Time Travel, which is a comedy. It runs just about 80 minutes, so a very easy watch. So if you have HBO, or HBO Max. Check it out. And yeah, that's what we will be discussing next week.
Frequently asked questions about time travel.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to thank you, we want to thank you all out there for
Yes.
listening. We really appreciate it. Again, we have no idea when this episode is going to go out. We're recording in late April. Yeah, so I'm guessing at some point in the summer. But by then, we will have very consistent weekly episodes. Um,
We'll have an intro video and everything.
Exactly. It's going to be great. We have no idea what it's going to look like, but it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Um, we're going to have cover art. It's going to look beautiful, and it's all going to be very well edited by moi. But until then, my name is Rowan Wood,
My name is Shane Conto, your Wasteland reviewer.
and we will be back next week with a brand new episode.